The grandmother was not a woman known for telling stories. She had spent most of her life keeping to herself, working hard, speaking plainly, and avoiding attention. Those who knew her understood that if she said something, it was because it mattered. She did not exaggerate, and she never spoke just to be heard. She lived near the edge of the forest during a time when people relied more on routine than explanation. Her days followed a simple pattern, shaped by work, weather, and responsibility. She respected the land but did not romanticize it. To her, the forest was neither magical nor frightening. It was simply there, like it had always been. For most of her life, she never mentioned what happened. Not to neighbors. Not even to family. It was only many years later, when age had slowed her and memories had begun to surface more freely, that she spoke of it at all. Even then, she did not tell it as a story. She spoke of it the same way she spoke of everything else, calmly, carefully, without emotion meant to impress. She said that many years ago, something happened in the forest that should not have been possible. She said she had been lost, injured, and certain she would not make it home. And then, without drama or explanation, she said a Bigfoot had found her. Not chased her. Not threatened her. Saved her. There was no build-up when she said it. No pause for reaction. Just a simple statement, spoken as fact. The room fell quiet, not because of fear, but because of how steady her voice was. She did not ask anyone to believe her. She simply told what happened, the way a person tells the truth when they no longer feel the need to defend it. The day it happened did not begin any differently from the days before it. The grandmother went into the forest for a simple reason, the kind of task she had done many times before. There was no sense of danger, no warning that anything would go wrong. She expected to be gone only a short while and planned to return before the light began to fade. The weather was steady, cool but clear, with the kind of quiet that often settled in during the late afternoon. She followed a familiar path, one she had walked enough times to know where it led without thinking about it. The forest felt ordinary to her, and she moved through it without concern. Somewhere along the way, something changed. It was not sudden. She slipped on uneven ground, twisting her ankle badly enough to slow her down. As she tried to continue, pain and fatigue set in faster than she expected. Each step became more difficult, and the path she thought she knew no longer seemed as clear. The forest grew quiet in a way that caught her attention. Birds stopped calling. Even the wind seemed to fade. She paused and listened, realizing how alone she was. When she looked at the sky through the trees, she saw the light beginning to drop. Evening was coming sooner than she had planned. She understood then that she would not make it home before nightfall. The thought unsettled her, but she did not panic. She had lived long enough to know that fear only made things worse. Still, as she stood there injured and slowing down, she accepted the truth of her situation. She was lost, and time was no longer on her side. As she tried to steady herself on the uneven ground, a faint sound reached her ears, soft, deliberate, and unlike anything she had expected in the forest. She paused, straining to listen, and then saw movement between the trees. It was slow, careful, deliberate. Then she saw it clearly. A figure stood just beyond a cluster of ferns, partially hidden but unmistakable. It was tall, covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb the dim light filtering through the canopy. Its posture was still, almost statuesque, and it held itself with a quiet presence that commanded attention without threatening it. Her eyes were drawn to its face, to the deep, intelligent eyes that studied her with steady curiosity. She felt a shock of recognition, not of fear, but of something heavier, something she couldn't yet name. She froze, unsure of what to do, but she did not scream. Her body felt rooted in place, aware that any sudden move might change everything. The creature made no sound. It did not approach or retreat. It simply watched, calm and unhurried. There was no aggression, no hostility, only the quiet observation of something that seemed both wild and conscious. Aware of her presence, and yet unwilling to break the delicate stillness that had settled between them, for several moments. They remained like that, she, hurt and wary, it patient and silent. The forest around them seemed to fade, leaving only the weight of the creature's gaze. She felt a strange reassurance in its calmness, as if it understood the situation better than she did herself. It was not a monster, she realized. Not a threat, just something vast, quiet, and unexpectedly deliberate. The figure remained motionless for a moment longer, then shifted slightly, lifting a hand in a slow, deliberate gesture. It was neither threatening nor demanding, simply a signal. The grandmother's heart beat faster, but she noticed the patience in its movement, the calm in its stance. It stepped back just enough to leave space, as if inviting her to move forward. In that quiet pause, she understood. The creature wanted her to follow. It did not speak, did not make a sound, yet its intention was clear. There was no magic, no theatrics, only a deliberate communication through gesture and presence. It waited, giving her the choice, yet guiding her in a way that felt purposeful. She hesitated. Her mind ran through the possibilities. To stay where she was meant remaining alone, vulnerable, and exposed. To follow this enormous, unfamiliar creature could be dangerous. Yet, staying carried certain risk. Her body hurt, her ankle ached, and the shadows were growing longer. Logic, plain and simple, told her that moving with it was safer. After a moment's pause, she took a deep breath and made her decision. She would follow. Carefully, slowly, she stepped forward, matching her pace to the creature ahead. Each step was measured, her eyes never leaving its form, yet she felt an odd sense of reassurance. The tension in her chest eased slightly. The creature continued moving, steady and unhurried, glancing back occasionally to ensure she was keeping up. It did not hurry, did not rush her. The silent understanding between them deepened with each step. She was not just following blindly. She was trusting, in the most cautious way, that this being would guide her through the forest safely. It was the first time she felt a strange comfort in the presence of something she had once thought of as impossible. And in that moment, the forest no longer seemed entirely frightening. It had become a path. A quiet passage guided by an unexpected guardian. They moved deeper into the forest, each step taking them further from the familiar paths the grandmother knew. The Bigfoot walked ahead, steady and deliberate, pausing from time to time to glance back and make sure she was following. Its pace slowed when she struggled over uneven ground, then picked up again when she found her footing. The forest around them grew denser. Branches brushed against her shoulders, roots tangled beneath her feet, and small rocks made every step require attention. Yet the creature never rushed. It seemed aware of her limits, moving with a patient consideration that made her feel less alone. Every glance it cast backward was measured, reassuring, as if silently saying, "Keep going. You are safe." The air felt cooler here, shaded by the thick canopy above. Sounds of birds and small animals were muted, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant sound of a stream. There was no sense of danger, only the quiet rhythm of their movement. Each step carried her further from home, but strangely, she did not feel panic. She trusted, in a calm and careful way, that the creature knew where it was leading her. After what felt like a long walk, the path began to slope slightly downward. She noticed a natural formation of rocks partially covered with moss and vines. Behind it, almost hidden, was the entrance to a cave. It was subtle, unremarkable at first glance. There was no grand reveal, no dramatic spectacle. Just a narrow opening in the earth, tucked naturally into the hillside. Almost invisible to anyone who did not know it was there, the Bigfoot paused at the entrance, standing aside as if to indicate that this was the place. The grandmother's heart quickened, but she felt no fear. The gesture was gentle, patient. The path had led her here quietly, without ceremony, and yet the weight of the moment was unmistakable. For the first time in hours, she took a deep breath, knowing that whatever awaited inside, she had been guided here for a reason. Asterisk. The grandmother paused at the mouth of the cave, taking in the narrow, shadowed opening. Despite her expectations, it was not dark or menacing. The air was dry, carrying only a faint earthy scent, and the interior was sheltered from the chill of the forest outside. The ground beneath her feet felt solid, free from mud or water, and the walls were smooth in places. As if shaped deliberately over time, she noticed subtle signs that someone or something had made this space a home. Small indentations in the soil suggested sleeping areas. Scattered around were simple, rough tools made from stone and wood. Tiny bundles of herbs, now dry, hinted at care and attention. A faint trace of smoke lingered in the air, soft and soothing rather than acrid. The cave was alive in its own quiet way, inhabited with intention and purpose. The Bigfoot remained just outside the entrance, its dark eyes fixed on her. It stepped aside, giving her the first chance to enter. There was no rush, no command, only a patient invitation. She hesitated for a moment, taking a careful step forward, then another. The interior seemed warmer than the outside, as if the space itself had absorbed years of care and quiet life. With each step, her understanding of the creature shifted. This was not an animal in the ordinary sense. It was deliberate, aware, capable of thought and care. The patience it had shown on the path, the gestures, the waiting, all of it now made sense. It was guiding her, protecting her, offering her a space of safety she had not imagined could exist. She reached the heart of the cave, the entrance now behind her, and felt a strange calm settle over her. For the first time, the forest did not feel threatening. She looked up at the Bigfoot, standing silently at the edge of the light, and realized that what she had once thought of as a monster was something entirely different and intelligent. Protective presence, quietly watching over her dot as her eyes adjusted to the soft, filtered light inside the cave. The grandmother took in the space around her. It was modest but clearly lived in. A small resting area lay to one side, marked by impressions in the dirt where someone or something had lain. Crude tools made of wood and stone were arranged with care, clearly used and maintained over time. Simple coverings, likely woven from natural materials, offered protection and warmth. Every detail spoke of thought, effort, and routine. It became evident that this was not the home of a solitary creature. Subtle signs suggested family. In a corner, partially hidden by a low rock wall, she noticed a smaller form. Its dark fur was matted, and it appeared weak or injured. The grandmother's chest tightened as she realized this was not a display of aggression or wildness, but a space of care and attention. Other signs hinted at past loss, a worn patch of earth where something had once rested. Small bundles carefully arranged, and faint traces of herbs and offerings. The cave carried the weight of life and the echoes of grief. It was intimate, private, and deeply human in its quiet expression. The shock she felt was not born of fear, but of profound sadness. She sank gently to the ground, careful not to disturb anything. Her hands rested in her lap as she absorbed the scene before her. There was an undeniable presence of family, struggle, and tenderness in every corner of the cave. Sitting there, she felt the enormity of what she had stumbled upon. This was not a wild, mindless creature. It was a being capable of care, of responsibility, of mourning. Her understanding deepened with every passing moment, and a quiet awe settled over her. She remained still, quietly bearing witness to a life far removed from her own, yet no less real, no less poignant. For a long time, there was only silence, punctuated by the occasional rustle of fur or soft movement. She did not speak, did not move. She simply allowed herself to feel the weight of what she had discovered, a living testament to the gentle complexity of a world she had never known existed. After a few moments of quiet observation, the Bigfoot moved closer, its steps deliberate and careful. In its large, steady hands, it brought a small amount of water, placing it within reach. There was no rush, no gesture of command, simply an offering. The grandmother accepted it slowly, lifting the cup with trembling fingers, and took a small sip, feeling the cool liquid soothe her parched throat. Next, the creature approached her injured ankle. Its movements were gentle, almost reverent, as if it understood the fragility of her body. It touched the injury with surprising care, adjusting her position slightly so that the pressure on the wound eased. There was no hurry, no impatience. Every motion was measured, intentional, and careful. Then came a long moment of eye contact. She looked up into the creature's deep, intelligent eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. In that silence, she understood that it knew pain, not only its own, but hers as well. It understood loss, the quiet ache that came with living in a world where danger and grief existed side by side. There was empathy in its gaze, a recognition of suffering, and a willingness to offer comfort without expectation or reward. She realized she was not dealing with a mindless animal. This being thought, felt, and acted with deliberate consideration. It had led her through the forest, guided her safely to this place, and now cared for her injuries without any demand or coercion. Its presence was steadying, calming, and profoundly human in its understanding. For several minutes, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. In the gentle exchange of glances, shared silence, and quiet actions, a bond formed, a connection rooted in respect, empathy, and mutual recognition. The grandmother felt an unfamiliar but deep sense of trust. The fear she had carried earlier melted away, replaced by a calm awareness that she was being cared for by something that, while extraordinary, embodied qualities she recognized as profoundly human. It was a moment suspended in time, wordless, slow, and filled with meaning. She would remember it for the rest of her life, not as a tale of fear or threat, but as an encounter with understanding, compassion, and an intelligence that transcended the boundaries of species. Morning light filtered softly into the cave, painting the walls in muted tones of gold and gray. The grandmother stirred, slowly opening her eyes to see the gentle brightness filling the space. She was alive, stable, and uninjured enough to move with caution. Relief washed over her in quiet waves. The night in the forest had passed without incident. The Bigfoot remained nearby, standing patiently as she tested her ankle and rose to her feet. Without a word, it turned and began walking toward the edge of the forest, pausing occasionally to ensure she was keeping up. Its movements were calm, deliberate, never hurried, as if marking the rhythm for her own steps. She followed, trusting its guidance. The forest, familiar yet strange in the morning light, seemed less threatening now. Each step brought her closer to the known world, and yet the memory of the cave and the creature's care lingered, quietly anchoring her thoughts. When they reached the boundary of human space, where trees thinned and the familiar trail re-emerged, the Bigfoot stopped. It stood still, giving her a final measured look. She met its gaze, feeling the weight of shared understanding, gratitude, and silent farewell. Then, without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the forest, moving with the same quiet certainty that had marked its approach and guidance. She remained for a moment, watching the trees where it had vanished, absorbing the reality of what had occurred. The forest felt alive in a new way, mysterious, yes, but also protective. She had been guided, sheltered, and returned safely, and the memory of that morning would remain with her, quietly shaping her understanding of the world around her for the rest of her life. The grandmother kept the experience private. She knew that most people would not believe her story. It was not meant for entertainment, exaggeration, or sensationalism. It was a memory, deeply personal and quietly profound. The encounter had changed her in subtle but lasting ways. She viewed the forest differently, not as a place of danger alone, but as a living space with its own order and intelligence. Her understanding of fear shifted. She realized that not all unknowns were to be feared, and her ideas about monsters transformed entirely. What people called terrifying or impossible could be gentle, wise, and even protective. She reflected often on the silent presence of the creature, its care, and the quiet exchange of trust and understanding. Respect for life, in all its forms, had taken root more firmly than she could have imagined. She carried this lesson quietly, allowing it to shape her view of the world without needing acknowledgement or approval. In the end, the story remained hers alone, a private testament to the unseen lives that exist beyond human perception, and to the unexpected kindness that can appear in the most unlikely places. It was a memory of calm, of trust, and of a gentle understanding that transcended words.